sparks of fireworks have graced the town of Dayton. On that night, the mayor was holding a unique vehicle contest. Participants from various cities have created a variety of transportation with their own advantage and uniqueness. On the other hand, Wright and Orville were trying to find the best place to watch a uniqueness vehicle contest. And there's old man is pedaling a bicycle, then waved toward the audience happily. Knowing this, Will and Orville cheered again, calling out the name of his closest neighbor. Until time is getting late, the participants of the competition begin to pack their own things. Will and Orville also return home with a little candy and snacks. Arrived from the back, Will and Orville were surprised by the presence of Uncle Stanley, who was leading a bicycle along with his son, who was carrying supplies. Wilbur was fascinated by Uncle Stanley's work. He knew that Uncle Stanley often spent time behind his house looking for ideas in each of his creations. Uncle Stanley just smiled at the sight of his work being praised. But to be sure, he saw Wilbur continue to look at his bicycle. Then Uncle Stanley offered Wilbur to try his bike. Wilbur was overjoyed after hearing this. Of course, Uncle Stanley had to quiet Wilbur when pedaling a bicycle. Shortly after that, little by little, Wilbur speeded up his stroke. Uncle Stanley began to burn out. When Wilbur was engrossed in himself, he tried to warn Wilbur to stay alert and not to pedal too fast, because Wilbur was still a beginner in driving bicycle. The road began to decline. Wilbur felt panic, and his hands shook when he held the steering wheel. The feared thing happened. Uncle Stanley was unable to walk. His son began to chase Wilbur, who seemed to lose his balance. Wilbur glided fast, then fell slumped into the trash can. Luckily, Wilbur did not suffer any injuries, but Uncle Stanley's bike suffered damage to the steering wheel. Even though Uncle Stanley did not mind this, Wilbur still begged to do anything in exchange for his carelessness. Then tomorrow in the morning, Wilbur and Orville went to the train station along with Uncle Stanley to help carry some milk consignments. On the way, Uncle Stanley tells about his youth. He used to be locked at by his friends when Uncle Stanley sought to create inventions of practical nature. Wilbur said to Uncle Stanley that he was amazed by his discovery, because humans can save travel time just by sitting and using environmentally friendly energy, while other vehicles must use engines or steam. Uncle Stanley could not help but smile. If he is given the opportunity to live a long life, then he wants to see humans able to fly freely like a bird. Shortly after that, the train whistle sounded. They checked the luggage first and went to the place corresponding to the recipient's address. On that day, Wilbur and Orville spent time with delivering milk to every house. It was quite fun for Wilbur and Orville, because he was able to get to know a new place as well as to see the beautiful scenery on the cart. But on the other hand, the two of them looked up and then realized that the sky was indeed very white. Until 1885, cold weather hit Dayton. Wilbur was awoke from his sleep with a bruise on the cheeks. Now, why Wilbur can got a little bump? Here's the deal. In 2 weeks ago, in the afternoon, a hockey game is taking place at his school. In this sport, Wilbur is quite agile in grabbing the ball and outwitting the opposing players. Some opposing players tried to dissuade Wilbur from scoring. From the side direction, one of the opponents began to move quickly. Swiftly, he began to grab the ball, but the stick he was flying right hit Wilbur in the face and knocking himself unconscious in the middle of the game. After that moment, the player don't accept that, make the atmosphere of the game quite chaotic. While his father and several other teachers began to drive Wilbur to nearby hospital. On the other hand, Orville was doing his final high school stint as a journalist. With his friend, he walked along the outskirts of the street in search of some unique news that happened in the town of Dayton. They continued down every street name, and all they found was a bunch of cats stealing fish, or just a clown show that was often held in front of the train station. All the time, Orville continued to search until the afternoon time changed. A single piece of news had not been obtained. They just get the scared of the kick that keeps teasing their rumbling stomach. When entering the bakery, Orville saw several staff chefs walking past them, as well as the head chef, who was synonymous with his thick mustache and distended belly. And Orville ended up ordering some cake for his friend. Orville seemed relieved that his friend liked his own flavor choice. But there's one thing that makes it awkward. Instantly, the grill spewed fire. Then it spread throughout the room. The entire store employs panic, and they shocked the safety of each other. Fortunately, Orville knew where the nearest police station was and immediately reported the incident. Bells rang accompanying the city. A water started coming out from the fire department's pipe, and the fire maintained its identity, devouring all the furniture store. Everything going being messed up. At least, none of the victims were involved in the incident. Suddenly, Orville got the idea for schoolwork. He told his friend to get a pencil and paper. With the headline it says, "The fire began to devour the bread house." The event made headlines at the school. According to the principal, the newspaper created by Orville was very neatly arranged, and the creative thinking he had managed to pour into writing perfectly. Hearing this, Orville is increasingly pursuing his field as a news writer, and every weekend, Orville always gets raw news from reporters and helps them to create a daily newspaper. But Orville thought twice. He wanted to build an independent printing business with his brother rather than join someone else. At home, Wilbur was arrived from helping his father on church, then went to get food for his mother, who was lying sick because she is suffering from tuberculosis. Orville recounted several interesting events to Wilbur that made him confused about where to start. Seeing his brother's happy face made Wilbur feel happy and helped his brother in the printing business. Alright, so the first thing they have to prepare is make a printing press. And actually, Wilbur and Orville never had any knowledge of the tool. Orville began to invite his classmates to search from some books. Meanwhile, Wilbur was discussing with his father about the material needs to make a printing press. After several days, they spent time just to find the formula of the sign that will be built behind the house. And finally, the two of them succeed in creating a grasshopper printing machine to create several newspaper sheets on small scale. Shortly after that, Wilbur and Orville began launching a newspaper. They named it the West Side News, with Orville as a publisher and Wilbur as editor. One of his clients, it was Orville's classmate, Paul Lawrence Dunbar, who had just been named an innovative African to American poet and writer, and they began consistently publishing several newspapers on each weekend. On the dining table, a radio station has reported that a mechanical engineer Otto Lilienthal from Germany is developing a flight experiment that will be the starting point for humans to be able to fly. Besides, Wilbur was watching his father from behind the window, walking while carrying some fruit. On the way, his father was accosted by Uncle Stanley's son while riding a bicycle that quite famous in the market. Seeing that, the two of them felt guilty to his father, who always walked just to buy fruits. Therefore, with the help from their office mates, they tried to design a bicycle that was suitable for all circles, because, according to Wilbur and Orville, penny farthing bikes are quite difficult to ride for those with short stature. Wilbur opened the door, and it can be seen that Uncle Stanley's son is carrying a bag. He wants to meet the boat, then give a book that was always inspiration for Uncle Stanley when he tried to make discoveries.